Now them had twa sons, and the other had ane, and by it was time for the wife that had the twa sons to send them away to seek their fortune. So she told her eldest son Ade to take a can and bring her water from the well, that she might bake a cake for him, and however much or however little water he might bring, the cake would be great or sma accordingly, and the cake was to be all that she could gie him when he went on his travels. The lad gaed away with the can to the well, and filled it with water, and then came way hame again. But the can being broken, the maist part of the water had run out before he got back. So his cake was very sma. Yet sma as it was, his mother asked if he was willing to take the half of it with her blessing, telling him that if he chose rather to have the hell, he would only get it with her curse. The young man, thinking he might aid to travel a far way, and not knowing when or how he might get other provision, said he would like to hae the hale cake, calm of his mother's malison, what like. So she gave him the hale cake and her malison a langt wit. Then he took his brither aside and gave him a knife to keep till he should come back, desired him to look at it every morning, and as lang as it continued to be clear, then he might be sure that the owner of it would well. But if it grew dim and rusty, then for certain some ill had befallen him. So the young man set out to seek his fortune, and he gaed that day, and the next day, and on the third day in the afternoon, he came up to where a shepherd was sitting with flock of sheep, and he gaed up to the shepherd and asked him wha the sheep belanged to, and the man answered, the Red Etin of Ireland. Aince lived in Belligan, and stole King Malcolm's daughter, the king of fair Scotland. He beats her, he binds her, he lays her on a band, and every day he dings her with a bright silver wand. Like Julian the Roman, he's one that fears no man. It's said there's ane predestinate to be his mortal foe, but that man is yet unborn, and lang may be it so. The young man then went on his journey, and he had not gone far when he espied an old man with white locks, herding a flock of swine, and he gaed up to him and asked whose swine these were, when the man answered, the Red Etin of Ireland, aince lived in Belligan, and stole King Malcolm's daughter, the king of fair Scotland. He beats her, he binds her, he lays her on a band, and every day he dings her with a bright yellow wand. Like Julian the Roman, he fears not any man. It's said there's ane predestinate to be his mortal foe, but that man is yet unborn, and lang may it be so. Then the young man gaed on a bit farther, and he came by to another very old man herding goats, and when he asked whose goats they were, the answer was, the Red Etin of Ireland aince lived in Belligan, and stole King Malcolm's daughter, the king of fair Scotland. He baits her, he binds her, he lays her on a band, and every day he dings her with a bright silver wand. Like Julian the Roman, he's one that fears no man. It's said there's ane predestinate to be his mortal foe, but that man is yet unborn, and lang may it be so. This old man also told him to beware of the next beasts that he should meet, for they were of a very different kind than any he had yet seen. And so the young man went on, and by he saw a multitude of very dreadful beasts, ilk ane of them with twa heads, and on every head 4 horns. And he was so frightened, and ran away from them as fast he could. And glad was he when he came to a castle that stood on a hillock, with a door standing wide to the wa, and he gaed into the castle for shelter, and there he saw an auld wife sitting beside the kitchen fire. He asked the wife if he might stay there for the night, as he was tired wi' a lang journey, and the wife said he might, but it was not a good place for him to be in, as it belanged to the Red Etin, who was a very terrible beast, with 3 heads that spared no living man he could get hold of. The young man would have gone away, but he was afraid of the beasts on the outside of the castle, so he beseeched the old woman to conceal him as well she could, and not to tell the Etin that there he was. He thought if he could put over the night, he might get away in the morning without meeting with a beast, and so escape. But he had not been long in this hidey hole before the awful Etin came in, and nae sooner was he in there than he was heard a crying, "Snook but and snook ben, I find the smell of an earthly man. Be he living or be he dead, his heart this night shall kitchen my bread." Now, in those days the word kitchen meant season, and the monster soon found the poor young man, and pulled him from his hole. And when he had got him out, he told him that if he could answer him 3 questions, his life might be spared. The first was whether Ireland or Scotland was first inhabited. The second was whether man was made for woman or woman for man. The third was whether men or brutes were made first. The lad not being able to answer one of these questions, the Red Etin took a mace and knocked him on the head and turned him into a pillar of stone. On the morning after this happened, the younger brother took out the knife to look at, and he was grieved to find it a brown with rust. He told his mother that the time was now come for him to go away upon his travels also. So she requested him to take the can to the well for water, that she might bake a cake for him. The can being broken, he brought hame as little water as the other had done, and the cake was as little. She asked whether he would have the hale cake with her malison, or the half cake with her blessing. And like his brother, he thought it best to have the hale cake, come the malison what might. So he gaed away, and everything happened to him that what had happened to his brother. The other widow, her son, heard of all that happened frae a fairy, and the young man determined that he would also go upon his travels and see if he could do anything to relieve his 2 friends. So his mother gave him a can to go to the well and bring home water, that she might bake him a cake for his journey. And he gaed, and as he was bringing hame the water, a raven ower abone his head cried for him to look, and he would see that the water was running out. And he was a young man of sense, and seeing the water running out, he took some clay and patched up the holes, so that he brought home enough water to bake a large cake. When his mother put it to him to take the hay cake with a blessing, he took it in preference to having the hald cake with a malison, and yet the half was bigger than what the other lads had got of that together.